Okay, so we're going to have a talk about reading musical notation today. As a musician, or as we are bass players and guitar players, is it important? Well, it's a big question really. It is. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do if you've already been introduced to an instrument and you've been playing an instrument. Then having to go back and learn how to read musical notation is incredibly difficult to do. But I do think it is a worthwhile thing to learn. There's so much involved in reading musical notation and the extra information it gives you about music, and also it makes the process of musical communication, especially amongst professional musicians, just so much easier. I know loads of musicians who don't read. I know loads of musicians who are better than I am who don't read. I know musicians who do read. I read myself. But it's not something I'm called upon to do quite a lot. It does help, if there's little excerpts of something there, I'll be able to then quickly execute that passage or whatever. But the musical study and practice and discipline of learning how to read is a great thing to do anyway, just in its own right. I've not always been a brilliant reader. When I was younger, I could read with the classical guitar and treble clef, but as I switched over to bass, I found it a little bit more difficult. And I think it's because I felt that reading musical notation as a bass player, everything needed to be a lot more perfect as you're playing in a band situation, like the lengths of the notes, the pitches which you're reading. It took a lot of practice to get it to the point where you're still making it feel like you're grooving and playing fluidly, but whilst reading the notation. Once you get better at it though, just one go or two goes through a piece of music, it just makes it a much quicker process to learn something, and you do become much more comfortable with the piece of music that you're going to be playing. But what I would say is more important than learning how to read music is actually learning about the language of music. So the theory of music, the harmony of music, the note choices in music, being able to communicate using the language of music, communicating how rhythms work, how harmony works, chord notes, root notes, anything like that, which really does help in musical situations with fellow musicians and what have you. But to come back to the actual notation process, it's incredibly hard when you can already play something, but if you can just dedicate some time each day into reading musical notation, it really will help you with an understanding even deeper with the music that you're playing. That is how I feel about it. I know, for instance, if I were to play with a big band, like a jazz orchestra or something like that, the intricacies in the process of reading that music is the exact note lengths, the articulation to the notes, playing as a section play with either the rhythm section or with other aspects of the band. I mean, all those other guys are reading, and they know exactly the length of a note, the emphasis of a note, the inflection of each note. I mean, there is a certain amount of interpretation with this, but I think it becomes a universal language which you all understand yourselves, of how those notes should sound and how you work as a section together. Now that's reading in a big band or an orchestral setting. As a gigging musician or a recording musician, these days it's seldom that you're placed or sat with a full score of music placed in front of you. Sometimes you are, but it's quite rare these days. But you're definitely going to be getting chord sequences and things like that, and rhythms written above, and sketches, so that is where the language of music, I think, comes in, and just knowing a little bit at least about the rhythms and at least about the note choices that you can make in a piece of music. On some gigs, I mean, you're going to get the important parts notated at least. If there's a full band tutti section, or there's a specific rhythm or specific notes you need to be playing or not playing, it's going to be written out for you, but a lot of the times you're going to be getting chords and with the slashes underneath the chords, and just so you can get through the sequence. Obviously the geography of the piece as well, so that's the form of the piece, and the repeats, the codas, the signs, the capos back to the beginning and things like that. That's all really important stuff to learn. So what I think we're going to do in this lesson is focus on just three notes by step. So we're going to look at a C, D and an E, and we're going to increase the complexity of the rhythm. Now if you can practice on this 10 minutes a day and really think about the length of those notes, really feeling where the pulse and the beat is in the music, you will start to become more and more familiar with this. Now if you were to go and sit in a band and get a piece of music sat in front of you, even if it's got the three notes on, that is where the next level of complexity comes into it, where you're having to play as a group. It becomes a little bit harder, but if you just try this by yourself at home, just reading a few notes each day, just 3 notes, different rhythms, getting comfortable with where those notes are on the bass, getting comfortable with how those rhythms should sound, and slowly, over time, you'll start to get more and more comfortable with this, and I think you'll start to see music in the written sense in a slightly different way than what you do now. So yeah, I do think it's important, reading. It's not the be all and end all. I mean, you might have played for 10, 20 years, you might be a fantastic player and musician that have got by with very little or no reading skills whatsoever, and that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I just think it is an extra worthwhile thing to incorporate into your playing. And like I say again, the discipline, and I've been there myself many years ago, the discipline of learning to read and putting that practice in when you can just wander off and play something which you already know and which you enjoy playing. It's incredibly difficult to keep that focus. So I would say if you could just dedicate 10 minutes a day to this as part of your practice routine, within no time you'll start to develop this more and more and more, work on more and more studies, and you'll be surprised of the extra things you might not know about quite yet that you will start to pick up through learning about reading, and even more so about the language of music and musical communication in that respect. Let's start off with my very low-tech method and introduction to reading music. Okay, so we're going to start off with a couple of rhythms first. So the first rhythm we're going to use is going to be a quarter note. So we get a quarter note, which is also known as a crotchet, which just looks like that there. There we go, just a 1 beat note. Now in the usual piece of music, which is in 4 beats per bar, we can split that into 4 quarter notes or 4 crotchets, just like that there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then we have a bar line, which resets into the next bar. We'll start from 1, 2, 3, 4 again. So on that rhythm there, we just have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've made 4 sounds, or 4 clapping sounds, or. Now to use a method which I use quite often, it's called the chordai approach, and what I would do for that is I give them a syllabic sound, or a sound of a syllable, which is just a ta. So we have a ta, 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 ta. So that's how we would feel a quarter note. So if we were to play those on the bass, I'll just pick a bass up. Say if I use the note A, so it goes A, 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 A. That's just the rhythm though. The next notes are a shorter duration than this, so they sound quicker when you put them all together. Double. These are known as quavers, or 1/8 notes. Now these ones look like that. That's just one set of quavers there. Those 2 notes there are exactly half the length of that note, so 2 of those overall equal the length of one of these. Now for this one, I use the syllable word tete, so tete, 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 tete. Tete, 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 tete. So we've got ta, 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 tete, 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 tete. So if I just rub this out, and we can combine these rhythms together, just to practice getting used to the feel of where the pulse is and the rhythm. So we'll maybe start off with a ta, which is the crotchet quarter note, the tete, which is the 1/8 notes quavers, and then 2 tas again, that fills up a bar of 4/4 just there. So we've got the ta, tete, ta, ta. So just by practicing to clap that or click it, there's a rhythm. We can shift those quavers around. So now I'm going to put them onto the 3rd beats. This one there would be ta, ta, tete, ta. So we can click that again as. So then we can put these quavers anywhere we like. Tete, ta, tete, ta. So there's a crotchets and quavers. Tete, ta, tete, ta. So that's the first approach into simple notation reading. They're using 1 beat notes and the 1/2 beat notes, or the quarter notes, should I say, and the 1/8 notes. Ta, ta, tete, ta, tete, ta, tete, ta. So we've got 2 bars of music there, 2 measures of music in 4/4 time. Okay, now there's other musical divisions, or as I like to call them, durations, because it's about the length of the note, how long the note lasts for, so I use the word duration quite a lot. So we have a whole bar of a duration, which is a note which would last for 4 counts. That's a long note, which just looks like that, known as a semi-breve, or a whole note, or a 4 beat note. put the bar line in the end there. So we would make a sound there for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, ta. Okay, so that would be a long sound, so a long duration. We can then split the bar up into 2, and we can use the half notes or the 2-beat notes, also known as minims. These one will go tie, tie, like that. Okay, so you could 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, just like that. So we've got 2-beat notes. And then, as we just had earlier, we have the quarter notes, and then we have the 8th notes, what I also call tetes, the quavers. So there we go. So that's a division. If I put the line all the way down, that's how we could divide a bar up using basic semibreves, minim, crotchets and quavers there. And we can use any combination of these. They can be in any combination. What you wouldn't have though is one of these and then a 1-beat note, because that would put us into a 5-beat bar. Then we don't want a 5-beat bar. We're just looking at, for the time being, reading in 4/4 simple time. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples of this on the bass, because what we are going to add is some pitches as well. But here for the next part, because we're reading in bass clef, reading the bass instrument, I'm going to put in the bass clef sign. And we're going to start looking at some pitches on the instrument which relate to the stave here of 5 lines. Okay, so I always like to count from the bottom of the staves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. In between those lines we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Now you can practice this without a manuscript, you can use your hand. So you've got the bottom line, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th line. So this is in the bass clef. We've got the G, the B, D, F, A. Okay, so it's a G at the bottom, then the B, D, F, A. You can make rhymes up which begin with these letters if you want to. And then we've got the spaces inside. We've got the A, the C, the E and the G here. So A, C, E, G. So you can practice that by yourself, but the notes we're going to be concerning ourselves with today are the C, the D and the E. Okay, so we've got the C in the 2nd space up, the D on the middle 3rd line and the E here. So if I transfer these onto here, so if we're in, so we've got 4 beats here, we've got a C, bar line, a D and an E. So there's 3 bars of music there. So we've got the C in the bottom, a 4-beat note, the D and the E. Now this C here on the bass is on the 3rd fret of the A string, the D is on the 5th fret of the A string and the E is on the 2nd fret of the D string. I'll show you those notes now. So we've got the C here, 1, 2, 3 on the 3rd fret, the D here on the 5th fret and the E on the 2nd fret of the D string. So C, D, E. Now you could play this D here as an open D as well, so you've got a choice there. So you've got the C, the open D, and then the E, or the C, the D, and the E there. They're the same D you see there. Okay, so we're getting to an exercise now. So if you look on my website, www.darrengloverbassandguitarlessons.com, go to the PDF page and you'll find the PDF for this lesson on there. Download that, print it off or save it onto your desktop, and use that in conjunction with this lesson now, and you'll soon be on your way to reading 3 notes using various rhythms. So without further ado, here we go. So we're going to start off really simply with 4-beat notes, so the semibreves. So I'm going to have the C, which is on the 3rd fret of the A string. I'm going to have the D here, then the E there. So C, D, E. I'm playing the fretted D, not the open D. It's the same pitch, same note. You can use either. I'm going to use the fretted one. Here we go. Don't forget to get over to my website, www.darrengloverbassandguitarlessons.com, to download the PDF which goes along with this lesson right now. You'll notice on there there's a sheet of music. It's in bass clef. It's using the 3 pitches C, D and E, C being the lowest, D in the middle, E the highest out of those 3 pitches which we had before. So we had the C, the D and the E if we want to use our hand as a stave. First up is the semibreves, the 4 count notes. So I'll count myself in for a bar. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Then to the D, keeping them nice and long. Then to the E. 2. Then back to the D. Then to the C. 2, 3, 4. okay? Keeping a steady feel for the beat all the time, just internalise that with your own body. Don't switch a metronome on right now because it just adds another load of confusion. Just keep this, just being able to feel where those 4 beats are, changing notes, always looking at the notes on the page as well as you do this, so you really get familiar with that symbol and where it sits on the stave. Okay, the next one is the 2 beats. So we've got 2 on each, so we're going to have a counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the minims, the 2 beat notes. The next exercise here are the 4 beat notes, the crotchets, the tars as we want to call them, tar, 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 tar. So I'm going to play 4 on each note. 1, so I'll count myself in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. Okay, now the next are the quavers, the 8th notes, or the tetes as we can call them. Okay, so the next exercise is going up like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and oh, tete, 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 tete. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now when you're comfortable with those really short exercises there, we can then combine some of the crotchets and the quavers together, so the quarter notes and the 8th notes, or the tars and the tetes. So we're going to put the quaver on beat 2, the 2 quavers onto beat 2, so it should sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, 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 ta. 4 beat note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so notice the durations are really important on that 4 beat note. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then cut it off just before you get back to the first beat again. Okay, so we're going to put the tetes on beat 3 now, so the quavers on beat 3. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Ta, 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 ta. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we stop again. And then the next exercise here is to use 2 sets of quavers. So we're going to put the quavers on beat 1 and beat 3. And beat 2 and 4 are going to be the crotchets, the 1 beats. So here we go again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 10, ta, 10, ta. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you notice phonetically I'm changing as I go along, so I'm either saying 1, 2, and 3, or whatever the quavers are, or the tetes and the tars. This is just to help you, show you different methods of being able to think about this yourself as you're playing through it. So those are just a few exercises there. Now the reason there are only a few short excerpts, I think that's just a nice bite-sizable chunk where you can really get yourself into and really have a go at this without biting off too much, without setting yourself goals which are too far in front. For those people who are just brand new to this reading, or people who are even new to playing, if you could just spend 5 or 10 minutes a day just on that exercise or those several exercises there, and really make sure you're looking at the note and connecting that symbol with the sound that it's making on the instrument, recognising the height of the pitch from the C to the D to the E, combining that with the rhythm. That's already 2 things you're thinking about. Plus then combine that with the feel of the pulse and your counting. And then you've also got to look and think about the technical aspect of the instrument. So you've got the symbol and converting that into the sound, and then making that into a coherent exercise or a piece which sounds good with all the right note lengths. You're already understanding, just by listening to me what I'm saying now, how many things you've got to think about there to make this work. When you can do all that, if you really feel you want to, and if it's something, I'm a little bit controversial with this, but if you want to use a metronome and put a metronome on, say set it to 100 beats a minute, try it with a metronome. It's no problem, but the most important part about this is getting to feel what the crotchets and quavers or the quarter notes and 8th notes feel like, getting to feel what the pitches feel like, and getting to feel what it feels like to look at those symbols on a page and translate that into musical sound on an instrument. And it's quite a nice feeling when you can do it. It's not the greatest bass line to play, but that is how it has to start. It's got to start simple like that, but it soon builds up. A bit of practice on this each day, increasing the pitches which you're using, increasing the complexity of the rhythms and increasing the length of what you're playing. Because there is a certain point always when you're learning this where you struggle on a bit and you come to stop and then you got to start again. But I always say practice small chunks at a time. So I hope this is helpful to you. If you've enjoyed this lesson or if you think it's of any use to you, please do subscribe to my channel. Leave me a like and a comment. Thanks very much for listening.